Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I speak on the bill?
Yes, sir.
The first thing I'd like to say is that parents are begging, they are begging this legislature for help. They're begging us to do something that is meaningful and something that is strong, to have the opportunity to keep their children safe, to keep them from being exposed to things that they should not be exposed to keep them from being indoctrinated, all of these things. And parents are begging us. They just want to be parents. And a lot of these situations, parents that want to be parents have no idea what their children are being exposed to. Over the past few years, we went through COVID. And when COVID happened, there was so much devastation that took place in our state. There was so much devastation that took place in our children's education and how far behind that they are and ground that they will never, ever recover. But if there was one good thing, Mr. Speaker, that came out of COVID, parents got to find out exactly what was going on in their children's education, and they got engaged and they got involved, and they said, we are going to band together and address these situations. We're not up here trying to get books out of schools that talk about the Civil War. We're trying to deal with books like Genderqueer that depicts sexual acts with minors and older teenagers. That people like Miranda Stovall that went and begged the school to get this out of the view of her son, of her child. She appealed all the way to the Jefferson County School Board, and they put together a board to review this, and they sided unanimously against this mother. That's what we're trying to address. That's what we are trying to fix in the state of Kentucky. We are trying to protect our children. And if you ask me, you don't have to. But if you ask me, there's a lot of things that we can do up here this session. But I don't think there's one single thing that we could do that would be more important than making sure that our children are protected. When you look at all these things that they are being exposed to, they're being exposed to things, some of these things nobody should ever see. And everybody can have the argument of whether or not that's infringing on people's freedoms. But from a moral perspective, but especially children. And so you have to ask yourself this question, why? Why are they being exposed to these things? What is the reasoning behind it? And I would venture today to say that part of the reason behind it is because inside of our education system are activists that are working to sexualize our children and that are working to gain the minds of our children and pervert them. That's what we're trying to address. I stand up here today and I ask myself this question, several days, several times in the last few years, I have scratched my head and I've asked myself, what in the world am I doing up here? But today, I know why I'm here. This is why I'm here. Our children are worth the fight. They are worth the effort. They are worth taking hard votes for. They are worth protecting. And that's what this bill is doing. It is a step in that direction of protecting our children. Mr. Speaker, in order to make this bill a better, stronger, more rounded bill, I filed an amendment on the floor today, House Floor Amendment 6. Now, I understand that it has not been filed in time. Mr. Speaker, I would ask to suspend the rules to be able to have Floor Amendment 6 called to the floor.
Motion of the gentleman from Breckenridge 10 is for a suspension of the rules for the purpose of allowing Floor Amendment 6 to be acted upon. Motion is non-debatable, requires a constitutional majority of 51. Those in favor of suspension of the rules, vote aye.
I continue to speak on the bill.
Yes, sir.
I filed another amendment, House Floor Amendment 3. The media has tried to portray what is going on, the things that we have filed. They have tried to portray this, and this is what they say, that we're just trying to pass don't say gay bills. That's what they've tried to portray. But it's not that at all. What we're trying to pass is a parents have the say bill. That's what we're trying to do. Parents have the say as to what their children should be taught. Parents have the say as to what their children are exposed to. Parents have the say as to whether or not their children should be exposed to pornography. Parents have the say to make sure that their daughter is not exposed to a boy when they go into a girl's restroom or go into a girl's locker room. They should have the say about that. That's what we have been trying to do. There's a school district in Kentucky, Mr. Speaker, that has a policy that if there's an overnight school trip and a child identifies as a different gender than they actually are, the school will allow the child to sleep in the quarters with the gender in which they identify, and they can't even tell the parents. That's what we're trying to do. This is not a don't say gay bill. This is a parents have the say bill. We're trying to give parents the power to be able to raise their children. As I've wondered many times about why I'm here and knowing why I'm here today, we have the majority of votes on this floor to pass a meaningful and as strong of a parents' protection and child protection bill as we want to pass. We do. And I want the public to understand this. One of the hardest things that I have ever done is make it to this floor tonight and do what I'm doing. I want the public to understand that on this floor is the votes to make sure that we protect our parents' rights. And for some reason, somewhere in this big house, it gets blocked time and time and time again. But it's here. You could say, Josh, gentleman from Breckenridge, whatever you want to say, you could say that I'm being disloyal by saying this. Call it whatever that you want to call it, but we're not talking about whether or not we're moving the tax rate 0.5% or 1%. We're not talking about whether or not that we're going to give big business a tax cut or we're going to give them a tax hike. We're talking about our kids. We're talking about protecting their innocence. We're talking about making sure that our kids' minds are not being perverted and that our kids are not being indoctrinated. It's kind of funny that the media wants to allege that I fight for school choice and I fight for these things because I want to benefit, because I'm the member of a private school board. Some nut files an ethics complaint against me, Mr. Speaker, and attacks me because I stand up to make sure that kids have the ability to be educated properly, and maybe somehow, if we can't fix this system, that parents might have a choice. They allege that my wife, who's not my wife, they don't even know my wife's name. My sister-in-law works at the school, but I'm fighting these issues because I'm trying to see if she can get a raise. My wife teaches at that school. She has volunteered for 13 years and has never received 1 cent, not 1 penny, for working. She volunteers every day to educate students. But that's the way that they want to portray this. My daughter graduates this year. I'll have no children left in school. Mr. Speaker, I have 2 grandbabies. And I have 2 young grandbabies on the way. And I will tell you that I have taken losses on a lot of things up here. I'll take a loss on a gambling bill, even though everybody in this house knows I'm adamantly against it. I'll take a loss on a liquor bill that grows liquor in the state of Kentucky, and everybody in here knows that I am adamantly against it. But I refuse to take a loss when it comes to our kids. I refuse. I can't stand idly by. I can't stand here today and not do everything within my power to help our kids. You think about, everybody sitting here in this room right now, think about what I am doing. Think about what I'm risking. I'm risking my political position. I'm risking friendships in here. I'm risking positions that I have, potential positions that I could have, and I am not intending to run for any big office. I have no intent to run for governor. I have no intent to run for a statewide office. And I am willing to stand right here, right now, and risk everything that I have for my children and your children and the children of the state of Kentucky. I'll risk it all when it comes to protecting their hearts, their minds, and their souls. The mind is the gateway to the heart. And when the mind becomes distorted, it's harder to get to the heart. And the longer the heart sits inside of that little body and the older the child grows, the harder the heart gets. Think about where we're headed as a society. Where are we headed? What do you want this society to look like for your children and your grandchildren? And then let's craft policy that makes Kentucky look like what we want it to be for our children. Mr. Speaker, I made the statement to somebody the other day. I said, exactly what I just said. I said, let's just craft policies that makes Kentucky what we want it to be for our kids and our grandkids. And I was told, you cannot impose Breckinridge County on Louisville. You got to let Louisville be Louisville. Let Lexington be Lexington. Well, guess what? If Breckinridge County is wrong, I'm going to call it out. But if Jefferson County is wrong, I'm going to call it out too. We cannot let those things that are happening across our state continue. If we let them continue, you understand that we will hit a point of no return when it comes to the minds and the hearts of our kids. They're going to be our next leaders. They'll be your next mayor. They're going to be your next judge executive. They're going to be your grandson's boss in the workplace. They're going to be in this house someday representing all of us. And if we don't intervene in their behalf, what are we going to do? If there is a majority of people that looks at policies like what has been placed to us today, and the majority of people say, we don't like the way it's going and we want to fix it, then I'm begging you, I am imploring you to please stand up right now tonight for our kids. This ain't don't say gay. This is parents have the say. And when parents have the say, and parents get involved with their kids, and they become parents, guess what? Kids grow up like they're supposed to. But when a kid goes into a school, and a teacher takes them in the bathroom and puts different clothes on them so they can help them be what they say that they are throughout the day, and then they change them and they send them back home to the parent, and they never even tell the parent? Where does that lead? Where does that end? And this is what I say to you tonight. We all know where that ends. We understand that we're living in days of prophecy. We understand that it's exactly like God said it was going to be. But I also understand this. Regardless of what it's going to be, because it's playing out as God said it would, my marching orders never change. I'm to fight for what's right. Mr. Speaker, I have always tried to be as transparent as I can possibly be, to my detriment. I have been. I have never tried to preempt anything in here without going to somebody and saying, this is what I'm going to do, knowing good and well that things are going to happen, and they do. It's part of it. I get it. Things are going to happen that's going to preempt what I'm doing. But I keep fighting. I keep fighting for the cause. So do some of you. There are people here, sitting here right now, that would love to have something meaningful to protect our kids in front of them. And House Floor Amendment 3 is not as good of an amendment as I want it to be, but it's meaningful. I will tell you briefly what it does. House Floor Amendment 3 defines terms in the first section. House Floor Amendment 3 in Section 2 gives you the right to raise your children without burdensome government interference. Section 3, it gives the right to the parent for curriculum transparency and accountability, medical freedom, and student safety in schools. It's also section number 4. It gives a right to learn approved curricula and skills, not to be politically indoctrinated, and not to have non-curricular discussions about sexuality with students. Let the parents do that. Gives a right in section number 5. It regulates courses and curriculums, things and programs that involve human sexuality. Section number 6 does what this bill does with even some more guardrails in place that says that parents have the right to not have pornography, vulgarity, obscenity, or harmful to minors matter or performances accessible at school. This particular section and we're discussing this particular bill, if you walked over to my office and you opened the packet that I have and you read some of the verbiage and saw some of the pictures, and this is not just in Jefferson County, Mr. Speaker. We have requests that have been sent all across this state, and these books are all across the state of Kentucky. Some of you, your kids are being exposed to these things. Section number 7 gives the right of a parent to make sure that kids, they have recourse if their kid gets bullied. Mr. Speaker, we have been accused this session of not caring about kids and not caring about the fact that children are committing suicide. And somebody made the statement that they hadn't heard one R mention something about it. Let me say something about it. Let me tell you one of the reasons that children are committing suicide. It is because they remain silent. It is because they bottle up all types of things inside of them and they never talk about it. You know what this bill does? If they bring it up at all, it forces a conversation with the parent. And you know what? If parents get to know that their child is struggling, they might get a chance to fix it. They might get a chance to help them. Section number 8, I put this section in there. It deals with the expanding extracurriculars that are not offered to students at private schools and homeschoolers, and just allows them to be able to participate since the parents pay tax dollars. I stand here today. I have never been more burdened. I have never been more overwhelmed. I have never been more oppressed in all of my life, because I'm talking about our kids. And Mr. Speaker, I ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 3.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 3 to Senate Bill 5.
Gentleman from Breckenridge.
House Floor Amendment 3 does the things that I just walked through, helps protect our kids. I understand there are a lot of thoughts and processes in people's minds in regard to how to raise children, all of those things. I understand that. But I think at the very basic, that there's enough people in here that believe that parents should have the say when it comes to their children. I would also call your attention to House Floor Amendment 4. House Floor Amendment 4, Mr. Speaker, I filed today. It wasn't filed in the proper amount of time. This amendment simply just says that children cannot be exposed to sexually explicit shows. And passed a bill with this language over in the Senate, came out of committee, went to the floor, passed on the floor. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a suspension of the rules so that we could hear House Floor Amendment 4. Mr. Speaker, again, I plead with this body to join with me in helping continue to protect our kids. You think about, we're talking about this sexually explicit material. We talk about sexually explicit shows. People that want, Mr. Speaker, people that want to perform sexually explicit things and put sexually explicit things in front of children, that want to do that and that fight to do that, they are preying on our children. This is a worthy cause. I understand that people think, there's probably people that think that adding amendments to Senate Bill 5 could possibly kill Senate Bill 5, and therefore it's better to take something than to get nothing. I understand that. And I despise putting anybody in that position. If you know me, you know that I do. I just feel like that this is the cause that's worth doing whatever it takes. I'm willing to risk it all on this cause. It's worthy. So you have people that are preying on our kids, people that are parents that are uninformed. And Senate Bill 5 is not going to die. Doesn't matter what we put on Senate Bill 5. Senate Bill 5 is not going to die. I talked to President Stivers yesterday, and I told him that I filed amendments and what I was trying to do. He did not tell me to not call my amendments. This leadership did not ask me to not call my amendments. They did not. I believe some of them, hopefully all of them, believe in the cause. But somewhere, somebody is blocking us as a majority that want to do something meaningful. They are blocking us from letting that happen. And for the life of me, I cannot understand. I understand the gentleman moving the sports gaming bill the other day, and if he wants to we jockey back and forth, and he knows what I'm trying to do, and I understand that, but with our children, I don't understand. Senate Bill 5 is not going to die. We attach something to it. It's probably going back to the Senate. They're probably not going to concur. It's going to go to conference committee. They'll remove anything that they don't want on it in the conference committee as a team. And Senate Bill 5 moves forward protecting kids. And I promised a mother that I would not do anything that would cause this bill to die. And I stand by that commitment. With that being said, Mr. Speaker, I did file an amendment that enhances the language for this particular bill. It's totally associated with the bill, and it has a lot of the same particular things in it. But the intent of this particular amendment, House Floor Amendment 1, is first, it's to improve Senate Bill 5 by tightening up the legal basis for the decision standards for the regulation or content, whether the material or events or program in K-12 public schools that are made optionally available as seen in schools and libraries are required and as seen in curriculum in 3 ways. It alters the definition of harmful to minors, and this is just to be consistent with the Supreme Court ruling for obscenity. That's the only reason that this portion is there. It's patterned upon long-established language from Miller versus California, Smith versus United States, and Pope versus Illinois, and it aligns with existing harmful for minors or harmful to minors definition found in North Carolina, Illinois, and Nebraska, just to name a few states. And it aligns with Tennessee's definition that was defended in Davis Kid Booksellers Incorporated versus McWhirter in 1993. And most notably, this is what it does. In the exemption from it adds the exemption from the definition of obscenity or harmful to minors to material that has serious literary or artistic, political, or scientific values for minors. I think it's important to just stay consistent with what Supreme Court has done in the past and to do all we can to be able to support this and build this up enough to be able to protect our kids. It also includes the definition of obscene imagery representing minors to be substantially identical to the federal definition of child pornography, i.e. it's obscene visual representations of the sexual abuse of children, and it has those things in there. And third, it makes clear that no matter that if it's obscene, it's harmful to minors, it contains obscene imagery representing minors, or is pervasively vulgar, that was cited in Board of Education versus PICO in 1982, shall be determined to have educational value or be educationally suitable in Kentucky. I voted yes for Miranda Stovall. I voted yes for the gentleman from Bullitt because I know that he wants to protect our kids. I voted yes for President Stivers. And I voted yes because I've never picked up a movie that said TG rating on it and asked my wife to call a teacher and see if it's suitable for my child. Even Hollywood knows that parents have the say. And I will take what I can get, and I'll keep fighting for what I want. Thank you.